Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for London Calling as well, in terms of giving me this opportunity to speak for the first time at London's Calling. So welcome to this session where I'll be talking about building your own custom predictions using Einstein Prediction Builder in the next 25 minutes. So a little bit about me. My name is Pratyush Kumar, and I'm working as a Salesforce technical architect. I've been within this space for nearly 10 years now, and I'm based in London. Like I said, I'm first time speaking at London's Calling, so that's a great opportunity for me. Outside Salesforce world, I love running, so I enjoy running long distances and love exploring places on my feet, and I'm a huge cricket fan. So let's move on to the most important part as well, which is the forward-looking statement. So because forward-looking statements are inherently subject to risks and uncertainty, reminders that you should make any purchasing decisions or investment decisions based on products that are currently commercially available. So moving on to the next slide. So this is our presentation outline for today. An introduction about what Salesforce Einstein is and what Einstein Prediction Builder is, and how to build our own custom predictions. We'll then dig or kind of walk through the configuration part of Einstein Prediction Builder, and then later on into considerations, best practices, and the helpful resources. So moving on to the next slide, what is Einstein or what is Salesforce Einstein? So let's take a step back in terms of CRM has become massively data-led in the last few years, and data-based insights are a critical component of strategic decision-making. But transforming data into actionable insights can be challenging, right? So this brings the role of predictive analysis to the forefront. So Salesforce Einstein gives sales, service, marketing a complete and up-to-date view of customers and sales prospects driven by AI. It's obviously an application that uses AI, which makes Salesforce smarter. It's built on the robust and flexible Salesforce security architecture. With Salesforce Einstein and then the Einstein platform itself, customers can build AI-powered assistants and apps by leveraging Einstein bots, voice, prediction builder. So obviously there are different apps as well, and different AI-powered assistants that we can leverage. So moving on to the different parts of Einstein itself, or the full spectrum of Einstein, is it helps us discover the hidden insights and patterns. Our data helps us predict the outcome for every function and industry using Prediction Builder, for example, recommends the next best action, offers or engagement that would help our customers, and helps us automating the business processes and workflows. It's more about, I wouldn't say like all the different, and when we speak about Einstein, I think it's more, or even when we speak about AI, it's more like we think about everything can be automated, which probably isn't the case in reality. So obviously we need to kind of define different like the full spectrum of AI itself in terms of descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. What we are going to focus here would be the predictive part, which is what's going to happen next. So Einstein Prediction Builder. So what it is, in common terms, Einstein Prediction Builder allows admins to create custom predictions on standard or custom objects in Salesforce with clicks and no code, which is the most exciting part. But it just has a very simple wizard, which we'll see in our walkthrough session later on. So predictions can be made based on the data given and continue to score as your data set changes, right? So there is no need for any tedious task of ETLing the data, which could be a very tedious task eventually. So it is just a few clicks process that allows you to make custom predictions related to any custom or standard objects. So it learns from examples in the past to make predictions, and using predictions or using those projections, it helps you work smarter by focusing your time on the right tasks. It predicts the answers to binary questions, that is yes or no, and numerical questions. And examples could be, like territory scoring or lead and opportunity scoring. So whether you want to maximize a win rate or maximize a CSAT score or maximize a cross sell. So it kind of depends on what the business problem is as well and what we want to predict essentially. But the key over here is to focus on specific high priority business outcomes. So how to build our own custom predictions. Before we jump into the how, let's talk about some data terminologies itself, which is specific to the prediction builder. So we have, so let's take an example of scoring leads maybe. So one of the first steps in building a prediction is to select the object that contains the field that we are predicting. So the set of records on that object is your overall data set. So in this case, you want to predict your prospects, maybe likelihood to attend, and it could be like a likelihood to attend an event, right? So your prediction is based on the lead object. So let's say you have 544 leads, and that would be your data set. So after selecting an object, you have the option to focus your prediction on a segment of your data. You use conditional logic to filter your data set, which creates a subset of that data. For example, you're interested in only your leads from non-banking industries. So that could be like your segment has 503 leads out of the 544 leads that we saw in the data set. Then it's more about telling Einstein which records in your segment or in your whole data set, if you're not focusing on a segment, to use as examples for building a prediction. So this is your example set. So Einstein obviously identifies patterns in data from these records to create predictions for other records. So your example set must include leads who have and haven't attended a previous event. So you set up your conditions to include only leads that are being worked on, using working leads rather than new leads. Makes your example set more likely to include a variety of values for prior event attendance. And then we talk about the prediction set, which is the set of records that Einstein predicts values for. So your prediction set consists of the records in your segment or data set, if you don't have a segment, that Einstein provides prediction results or scores for. So the default selection is to score records that aren't in the example set, which in the case means new leads for you. As we build a prediction set, we would come across various other terms like data checker. And we'll see that in a bit as well. But before we move on to the actual walkthrough, let's talk about different steps to configure our Einstein Prediction Builder itself. So like any other application, the most important part is the planning bit, but because the planning over here involves a lot more than in terms of, like machine learning itself. So we need to give or have a thorough analysis done as part of the planning bit. And then obviously then it's the build part and then the preview part. So, but before we start building an application, take some time to think about what you want to predict and how it translates to Salesforce objects and fields. So in some cases, you might need to create a custom field to get your data in a format that Einstein can predict. When planning your prediction, you first decide what field you want to predict, right? So how you set up your prediction depends on the data type of the field you are predicting. So choose your object carefully, choose what to predict, which is like what field you exactly want to predict, and decide based on the field and the field type, like what the prediction would look like. Choose what information to use, and obviously save the prediction as part of your build. So that's different. That's a very high level as well in terms of, what different phases are involved. But let's move on to the more important part, which is planning your predictions. As part of planning your predictions, obviously, we need to give enough time to think about what you want to predict, right? In some cases, you might need to create a custom field to get your data in a format that Einstein can predict, but make sure you follow the key point over here, which is focus on specific high priority business outcomes. The most important part is defining a use case. So what is the problem my company is facing? So think about these use cases itself and then try to drive an answer based on the use cases. And based on these questions. So what type of prediction will help? Can this prediction be phrased as a yes or a no or a numeric question? How will I use this prediction? How do I measure if this prediction is successful? So there are different questions that needs to be answered as part of defining a use case itself. Choose your object, obviously depending on the use case that we have, and then the field and type of field that we want to predict values for. So obviously there are two different types of field that we can predict values for, which one is binary prediction, the other one is numeric prediction. Or numeric prediction can predict numeric fields like revenue, year-over-year growth, cost, tax, salary, or but whereas the binary predictions can work on examples like likelihood that a deal will get closed in the next quarter, or likelihood that year-over-year growth is greater than last year. So it all kind of depends on the use case. The key over here is to choose a repeatable workflow that you can report on to build your prediction. Take some time to identify the data that will enable the best quality signal for your prediction. And the more the data connected to Salesforce means more options with predictions, and better quality data means better quality predictions. So a few examples of what to expect in terms of predictions could be whether the next invoice will get paid or not, number of hours to close high priority cases. So there are obviously different use cases that could be defined, but it all comes down to the key that focus on specific high priority business outcomes. So moving on to the walkthrough part, we'll have a situation wherein, or we'll have a very basic example of predicting whether closing, or it's more about likelihood of closing an opportunity and winning the deal. So what I have on the screen at the moment is Salesforce org, which I've obviously logged in, and I've already enabled the prediction or the Einstein prediction. So what, and then the way we would try to build this prediction would be obviously based on the use case that we have. That is the likelihood of closing an opportunity and winning the deal. So when I click on new prediction, I need to enter a prediction name. I think I've already used same set of prediction before. So let's do opportunity closure prediction. I'll just put 3 in there. The next bit is obviously choosing my data set, right? So I'll choose opportunity, and then whether or not I want to follow the segmentation process. I would probably not in this case, but if we want to, we can we can obviously define a criteria over here that focuses on this particular segmented data itself. Maybe amount is greater than comparison, or I'll just do currency and do 100K. And I just want to segment data based on this particular use case, but I'm not going to select any for this example, and I'm going to go with no segment. Click on next, and then this is a question which is about what kind of predictions do you want. So whether it's a binary one, whether it's a numeric one, I'll choose a binary one because I'm checking the likelihood of closing a deal or not. And the next bit is whether you already have a custom field that you can refer for the prediction. But I don't have any in this case, so I'm going to use no field and go to the next step. And if you click on, and obviously that's where we define our example set. So example set and prediction set, obviously it's more around the fact like you can define the set of records that Einstein provides prediction results for, right? So I'm gonna give the criteria for example sets. I do it on stage equals closed won. And that's the yes example, and the no could be stage equals close lost is when this prediction. Yeah, so these are my example set, but I can also go in and define my prediction set. So prediction set at the moment is defaulted to the new set of records that I'm going to create, but you can change it depending on your use case, obviously. So I'll click on check data. And if you remember, I was talking about the data checker initially, and that's what my example set looks like at the moment. So I've got 516 example records, 391 yes, 125 no's, and I've got 193 records to predict. So and then it's recommended to kind of use the data checker more frequently, I would say. Click on next, and this next screen shows us in terms of number of fields that we can, or all the fields that we have and we want to include as part of the prediction calculations done by Einstein. It is totally, up to us as well in terms of what we want to predict for. So you can exclude some of the fields over here if you want, and decide whether to select or whether to include certain fields or remove certain fields. But I'm gonna include everything and let Einstein do its magic behind the scenes. The next field is, or the next screen is about naming the custom field that stores your results. And I'm gonna name it as winning predictions 3. And the next option is about whether to show the top predictors on records or not. So with Einstein prediction component, so what it does is it displays the Einstein prediction component on records, and you can see the top predictors that influence predictions results at the record level. So I'm gonna put it as on. Click on next, and that's the review screen. So I just quickly review if all the details I've provided here is right or not. So these are all the included fields. I haven't excluded any And then, as you can see, like all the different configuration steps that we just went through. You can once again click on check data, looks good, and then build the prediction. So once it starts building the prediction, it takes, so the first time when I did it, it took almost 24 hours for me to get it enabled, or for it to do the calculation. But that was a very, well, and it was also because of a known issue that we had, but usually it's pretty quick, I would say, and then it should probably be able to give us the option in maybe a few minutes. But like I've already like created a couple for this demo. And as you can see, like the review part is also really important that we were talking about, which is about, like reviewing your predictions itself. And so it's more about after your prediction is finished building, you review the scorecard. So check out the big picture matrix, which is here, and make sure, and then have just like probably also pay attention to this text over here, which says estimated. So it's like working on an example set, not on actual data at the moment. And it's important to understand this scorecard itself. So prediction quality, the top predictors, what are the key attributes that are the key values as well that is driving this prediction, the distribution of results itself, like what's yes and what's no, and what kind of, and what's the percentage that it's currently working on. But apart from these details, the most important bit that I would say is also kind of the model type that Einstein assigns based on the different, whether you are using a binary field or a numeric field as well, and what kind of prediction it is based on. The fields that are driving the prediction, you can see like different percentages over here, and obviously the settings that we have just configured. And you can see it in real action as well when you, so what I've done is I've created a list view over here, add those predictions, and because I've created a couple of different predictions, so you can see like based on different segmentation data that we have, you would see like different scores being allocated as well, based on the machine learning bit from Einstein. So coming back to the presentation part, so there's obviously the consideration and best practices as well that we should take into account. So think about it as we do need to review it quite frequently, I would say. And like machine, it is also because, like this is a machine learning project, which is a bit different than a normal project. It's more like an iterative process. So it's important to work on to take into account different phases of that kind of project as well. But to summarize overall, I would say like give a lot of emphasis to data. Obviously, there are different options, and based on different licenses, there are different capability in terms of what you can do or what you can't do. So Einstein, you have two different licenses, Einstein Predictions and Einstein Analytics Plus. What I was using here was Einstein Prediction license, which helped me, or which had a limit of 20 predictions and enabling up to 10 predictions at a time. But you can also get the Einstein Analytics Plus license, which is a bit more advanced. These are both paid versions of Prediction Builder. And in terms of some key points, like I was mentioning, it is all about data. Start with the end in mind, embed predictions and actionable insights within Salesforce. Take into account the machine learning projects, and understand how it is different essentially before starting the project. The most important bit is improving your predictions quality. So try to collect more data. Obviously, there are different scores that you get, whether it's a good, whether it's too low score or a low score, or even like too good score, you know. So there could be like different categories of the quality of data that you have. And even your prediction quality could vary depending on the data that you have. So if it's too low, or if it's not good enough, you know, for your business, sorry, so try changing the way your data is segmented. Have a look at some of the key points in terms of, you know, like make sure your example set is more focused in terms of yes and no examples. Make sure you are not excluding any fields that you could provide additional or useful data from. So if your prediction uses formula, check to make sure they are correct. If your prediction quality is too high when estimated, you know, there could be some hindsight bias as well. So what is hindsight bias? That's an important, and there's loads of articles around this as well, but it's more like it's likely it's more about, you know, check if your prediction looks wrong. Is it too high in terms of your prediction quality score that you are getting? Look at what's wrong. It could have been until you know, after the event is being predicted. So there could be like a lot of things that could go wrong as well. Look for top predictors on the scorecard as well. Do they make sense? If any of them, if any of them look wrong, consider excluding those fields. So obviously there's a lot to consider as well. But also make sure you know what are the non-GA features. So for example, or like at the moment, what we have as non-GA is the numeric field prediction. So make sure you take any business decisions based on the sole discretion and at your own sole discretion. Essentially, make sure it is focused on the on the generally available products and features. The other bit is scoring frequency, which is still a pilot feature. So you can decide how often records are scored for your prediction. The options that Salesforce gives you is hourly and when records change. So have a look around it, I would say, and see what works best for your business. But make sure whatever business decisions you are choosing is, yeah, at your own discretion. Some of the helpful resources that I've come across while digging deep into Einstein Prediction Builder. Obviously, there is Trailhead modules around it, which are really, really helpful and would get you started with building like a really basic prediction builder itself. But the key over here is to obviously improve on whatever you have worked in the Trailhead modules, right? And there are like loads of good content around it. So have a look around it. I'll be sharing this slide later on. So please feel free to obviously reach out to me on my Twitter handle, which was in the initial slide as well. And thank you for joining in. It's been great pleasure to talk at London's Calling. Thank you.